Well, good morning. This is Nancy Lohr, and I am with Reselling into Retirement. And what we do on Reselling into Retirement is we talk to people who are 55 and older, who are either retired or they're working toward retirement. And we want to talk about their successes, their trials and tribulations of being a reseller. And today we have Elizabeth. Is it
Lisandra McGrath.
Lysandra? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I messed that up.
That's all right.
Oh gosh, that's a great way to start a podcast here.
Coming to you live. No editing,
Lysandra.
no editing, no editing.
So anyway, Lysandra is a reseller, and we're here today to talk about some of her trials and tribulations and successes that she's had in the reselling world. So Lysandra, how long have you been a reseller?
Oh my gosh, forever. Full-time, I would say probably about 3 or 4 years, seriously. I opened my eBay account back in the 90s. And I actually started selling antiques and furniture in New York, upstate New York. Wow. 1, 2, 3. This was with my second or third husband. We were just in the process of getting together.
We're not
buying
counting.
a house, furnishing the house. Yeah, I lost count. And we would attend auctions in the area, and we absolutely both loved it. We had a 2-acre property, and we furnished the house, and then all this other stuff that we ended up getting ended up in the other. We had like outbuildings. It was basically a converted farm. Eventually, when I started eBaying, I had a on the property was a 2-seater outhouse that went from a shitting shed to a shipping shed. That's where I kept all my, like bubble wrap and
At least you
supplies.
kept the essence.
I sold and collectibles and antiques. And then I had on the weekends, it was actually an open, antique shop, just ran basically. I mean, it was open 7 days a week, but it was mostly busy on the weekends. So that's kind of how I got into it, not knowing, New Yorker from the South Bronx, knew nothing about furniture, high-end furniture. And I didn't know, like walnut from cherry, from nothing. So I ordered a bunch of books from Amazon and taught myself, just taught myself about the different kinds of woods and the different eras and on and on and on. And I loved it, absolutely loved, I had always loved thrifting. And I would meet other resellers at, before the auctions, and I'd hear them talking about eBay. And I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. But eventually I started listing things on eBay, furniture, and, being in the New York area, I had people from the tri-state, what they call the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey. I mean, even as far as Pennsylvania and New Hampshire would come and pick up these pieces. So that was my sort of like foray into eBay.
Interesting. When you started getting into furniture, there must have been something that you were interested in about furniture. I mean, whether it be
I always liked
or...
old Victorian stuff. Hold on, I
Mhm.
got stuff going off here. And the idea that I can buy a period piece, a Victorian period piece, whether it was a headboard or a dresser, armoire, for $50 just was so sweet for my soul. And then eventually that I could sell these, like once I had furnished the house, and now we've got all this extra, basically what I, ended up being inventory. It was actually my husband's idea at the time. I was like, well, why don't you just open up an antique shop? And I'm like, okay. I had just gotten laid off. I had many corporate jobs over the years. And at the time I was working for Penthouse Magazine in their marketing department. And I got laid off again. I had many incarnations at that company. And when we got together, I was now too far to commute back into the city and trying to figure out my way. Like, if I'm going to stay up here, what am I going to do? There's no corporate work up here. And if there is, it's tiny companies. I'm going to make a third or a fourth of what I was making. So he said antique, and I was like, okay. And I basically just taught myself, and it was all about, the conversation we were having earlier about marketing. Marketing just comes down to buy low, sell high. I've been a stockbroker, I've been a tutor, I've been, so many different things. And the whole marketing thing is always buy low, sell high, and try to create a win-win
Mhm.
situation. I'm buying it at 50. He's buying this amazing one of a kind piece for $500 and thinks he's getting a deal. I'm not going to break his heart. But it was amazing. It was an amazing journey. I absolutely loved it. Wish I could still do that. I don't have the space to be able to do something like that. And it's not the same game that it was, 25 years ago. So yeah.
Right. Interesting. And you say, so right now you're not, you're actually retired from corporate America.
I wouldn't call it that word is just, I never plan on retiring. Yeah, I haven't worked for a corporate entity in many, many years. I left that many years ago. And then eventually I became a personal trainer. I worked for a number of different gyms in New York. And then eventually I did my own thing and was just kind of training clients privately, and had a huge crushing reality check when I moved to Florida from making, in New York, typically 100 to 150 bucks an hour. And down here, they're paying like 30 bucks an hour. I'm like, oh, time to change it up. And in the meanwhile, all these years between houses and husbands and job changes, I've always maintained an eBay account. And it was always sort of like a little thing on the side, or, I'm getting rid of stuff after another house change, husband change. I would throw things on eBay. And I did a lot of buying as well too, so I came down here, I picked up a few pieces and realized I'm not going to be able to do what I did, how I did it back then. And I had sold clothing on eBay before, but it was all like vintage pieces that I would get in like box lots when I was at auction houses. And have always been sort of like a fitness gym bro, really, not even like a chick. Like I 90% of my clothing is gym related, but I'm not like a Lululemon, I have like an old guy's t-shirt, and I had to learn, and I sort of taught myself, what's trending. I don't, like I'm watching fashion shows, like stuff like that. It's not my thing. And even, when I started watching other, I followed other resellers, Hustling Hooks and I forget Ashley. I love Ashley's channel. And I stumbled onto Daily Refinement when he was 10K on the Bay and so sort of, I knew that at some point I had to niche down, because when I realized that I'm not going to do personal training here, I opened, a full-fledged store and started sort of dumping everything in there. So whatever I could find, again, it was back to that buy low, sell high. And I was following Hustling Hooks, and they were selling, doing pots and pans. I'm like, I can do that. They don't break. That's easy, and then I started, the more I watched Chris's videos, I realized, oh my God, I've really got to niche down. And the pots and pans were easy to sell and ship and all that. But the more delicate stuff, like I didn't want to deal with like making, Franken boxes and bubble wrapping and, so the clothing was so much easier. So I did that sort of naturally. And when I joined the group and, even further, and now I'm trying to get rid of as much of the women's clothing as possible. Pretty much 90 to 99% of my returns are from women. Guys don't send stuff back. I've had over 20 years, I've had 3 returns from men, and they were all my fault. Either I listed something in the wrong category, the wrong sizing, so, and it's funny because even though I'm selling more men's clothing, I do get returns on occasion, but they're because women are buying men's jeans. They don't fit. I'm like, well, you don't know your size, because I don't know how else I can explain to you. You show the tag, you show how it's made. It's got spandex. The minute I hear, how much stretch does it have? I'm like, honey, go up a size. There's no, there's nothing wrong with that,
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, good. And you mentioned something about, which I thought was really interesting. The reason why I focus on interviewing people that are 55 and over is because at this age, we have many more issues and things coming up in our lives than we have 10 years ago. For instance, we're either taking care of family members or we have to take care of our own health. And health plays a huge role in getting older. Everybody knows that, but until you experience it, you just have to experience it, because I always thought I was invincible. There was nothing touching me and I would run like the wind. But the last 5 years or so, it's like, I've really got to
Slow
start paying
down,
attention.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, a little bit more. But
Mhm.
but you got to pay attention to what you're eating. You got to pay attention to the amount of exercise that you're getting,
Absolutely.
movement, just movement, and not sitting in front of that TV. And that's so easy when you get older, when you start to have aches and pains. You sit and you don't do anything, and that's the worst thing that you can do for it. So you mentioned something about you have this fitness background or health background that you were interested in. I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about that, as far
Sure,
as
absolutely.
getting older.
Yeah, so for many years, I actually started competing professionally in my 40s. Um, Sort of on a fluke, I didn't know anything at all about it. I went out and bought like a store-bought bikini and paraded my ass on stage, and I was hooked. I absolutely loved it. I came in, I don't know, pretty close to dead last, and I'm like, oh my God, I was so excited. I've got to do it again. Typical junkie mentality. Do it again, do it again. But I did it in between the house moves and the husband. So anytime that I competed, I was on my own, because it really was all encompassing as far as the diet regimen and working out twice a day, cardio, so it was basically a 24/7 job. And I absolutely loved the regimen. There was no debating. You get a list of what you eat, what you do, what when you work out, your supplementation. And it was, so for me, it was super easy. And I'd hear my fellow competitors whining about their diet. I'm like, honey, this is an option. You don't have to do this. So start, grow up, okay?
Right.
Grow yourself a pair, and I thrived in it. I really did. So I started competing in my mid 40s, on again, off again. I'd get married, I'd stop, I'd go back, I'd do another show. And then I decided shortly before my 50th birthday, I was like, you know what? Again, after another divorce, I'm going to give it my all. And I believe I did about 8 shows that year, back to back. I'm going to get my pro card. I'm going to turn pro. And sure enough, a few days before my 50th birthday, I got my pro card. IFBB Bikini Pro. And then it was, you basically just kind of reset. So now you're the bottom of the barrel in this group now, and now you've got to work your way up. And for me, it wasn't so much about that, but I love the whole journey of it, getting ready for a show, the dieting. It was very strict, very military style, and I really, really thrived in that. And now I'm kind of like lost without it. But yeah, so I did that for many years, and my last show was in 2019, and I had like this whole plan. I'm going to retire in 2020. Little did we know about COVID, so that kind of got kiboshed. So yeah, so my last competition was down here in Florida. And I haven't competed since, and I've been like sort of lost without it, and I worked out for most of my adult life. I basically joined like back in the day, Jack LaLanne gym when I was 18, and I haven't looked back. Yeah. So I've been a gym rat my entire life. I thrive and hang out with that sort of mentality and those people. And, this is what it's about, and thank goodness that I did, because now, just turning 60, I can't imagine what I'm going through. The only medication I take is a really low dose of levothyroxine for my thyroid issue. And I've tried, I was off of it for a couple of years. That kind of backfired. I'm back on it, and sort of slowly tapering off, changing my diet. But it all comes down to, like we were talking earlier, it all comes down to, what you feed yourself, whether it's the crappy news or the friends that are around, family and friends, or what you're eating. Everything comes back out. Everything comes back out. So, thank God I have taken care of myself. I've got like stuff going on with my lower back and my hip and my this, but I know that I need to be able to focus on solutions, which is why I love the group, the Reseller Nirvana group. We all have issues going on, and, and pulling us in 20 different ways, whether you're in your 40s and 50s and still dealing with kids, or empty nesters, what are you going to do about it? So.
Right. Right. Yeah, there was we talk I think on every episode we've talked about Reseller Nirvana, and Daily Refinement, because we're all in that group, and there is so much that this group has to offer. It just, I've been on I've been on social media. Well, I don't have a huge presence. I used to have a lot bigger presence, but I had some crazy stalkers, and I just had to like exit from it for a while. It was really weird. And I'm just getting back into it. But and I realize how important it is to have, I mean, you don't have to have a social media presence in order to be successful in reselling, but it does help in some ways. But listening to Chris, he has these morning calls at 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and he was talking about high level eBay and low level eBay. Low level eBay is just the functionality of it, of the taking pictures, of the listing, of, you know, the tools, and just, you know, getting from point A to point B of a listing. But the high level part of eBay is the mental part of it. And I think that, I mean, that really hit home with me, even though it's something I've always known in the back of my mind, everything is mental. It just brought it to the surface again, because moving forward as we get older, I mean, I'm realizing, you know, if we're not in a good space, headspace, I mean, that's 99.9% of it. I mean, I know a lot of us have physical limitations and ailments and things like that, but we got to get in that good headspace if we want to be happy, you know. And the base, it's just about being happy. And you know, a lot of people have also lost money. I mean, 2020 was, I mean, I know there was a lot of government money being handed out and stuff, but man, there's some people that they weren't privy to that money. My husband, you know, who has a logging operation, he wasn't privy to that money. And fuel prices have gone through the roof, and people don't want to work anymore at a hard job like that.
And
So
food prices. Oh.
and food prices, but it makes it impossible. It makes it impossible to, you know, make some industries are going, I hate to say it, you know, they seem so necessary, but they're challenged to the point that they're going by the wayside. But you know, my point is that if you're at that age, you know, where you're thinking about retirement, or you're you know, you don't have that much time, or maybe you do have still a few years, it's important to look at something a little, you know, different, because you may be pushed into retirement. You may have to stop doing what you're doing because it just doesn't make sense anymore. You know, there's just the money isn't there. And, you know, why are you doing it? I mean, if you're doing it, you know, to have a good time, there's other things you can do to have a good time, you know, or to have fun. But my point is, anybody can be a reseller. Absolutely anybody. But to have that positive mental headspace is imperative.
Absolutely.
It is imperative. So how do you get that mental headspace? How does a person go about saying, you know, waking up one day and saying, okay, I'm going to change it. You know, I'm going to quit watching this negative news, and I'm going to do something more positive, and I'm going to get in a better space, and I feel more productive.
Yeah. So you have to, I mean, for me, I am not a naturally happy-go-lucky, wake up and, oh my God, it's another glorious day. You know, that's not who I am.
A lot of people aren't.
I'm a natural, you know, and it's taken a long time. I used to say, I'm just a realist, you know, I'm basically a pessimist, but you know, realizing
Realist
that,
wannabe.
yeah. So realizing that I'm never going to be a happy-go-lucky, you know, the glass is to me, I've always said, like, it doesn't matter whether the glass is half full or half empty, it's chipped, so I don't really care how much water is in there. You know, I'm just a realist, you know, that sort of thing. So, and I realize it about myself. And when I get up with like the negative Nellies, you know, that morning, I still, you know, hit my knees. Thank God I woke up for whatever I have. Thank you for every eBay order, no matter how much crap I had to deal with. And if it's going to be, and if it's one of those mornings, I do everything I have to. So whether it's like, okay, I'm going to put a little Joel Osteen in the background, or I'm going to put a little, you know, positive affirmations. Like I have my go-to list of things that I do to get myself out of it, because being negative results in basically no sales, because I'm in that I don't give a F mentality, and everybody can go screw themselves. And that's it's not a good place to be. So I do what I have to do, and I need to do. I don't want to, but I don't want to be in that headspace. And it really doesn't, the older I get, one of the benefits is, embracing that reality and realizing that there are always solutions. I didn't wake up 6 feet under. There's always a solution. There's a way to get out of it, and there's so many positive people out there, putting forth positive stuff. So I get my little dose of reality on the news, and same shit, different day. And I'm on to following, the positive stuff that's going on. I check on the group, and they're still bickering about something or other, but it's not in a negative sense. It's sort of this community of like-minded people putting stuff out there. And, I absolutely love YouTube. It's just such a wealth of information on YouTube. You can, learn to stitch your own, button back on. I mean, there's so much information. I fixed my hip, following different physical therapists on there. You can do yoga, I listen to all kinds of music throughout the day, whether it's on Amazon Music or on YouTube, jazz, depending on my mood. I start off with like light jazz during the day, getting ready for the gym, time for heavy metal, but the morning is about, setting the pace and getting into that positive mind state. Like I said, especially those mornings when I wake up like, oh my God, everybody can just like leave me alone for one day. And then halfway through the day, I'm whining about why doesn't anybody call me?
Right.
So, but we can moderate that, as long as you realize that your existence is basically a byproduct of your choices. So if you're in a happy state and you woke up that way, Pelosi clap for you, yay. But I don't wake up that way every morning, and I have to create that. And I'm willing to do the work because I don't want to be in a crappy headspace and have it affect everything and everyone around me. So it's an intentional thing you have to do. So
yeah, it is every day. And especially if a person is, and I know you're not at this point, and I am still actually working, but I work for myself. Being self-employed is a lot different than working for corporate America.
oh yeah.
And it's very close to what a reseller has to go through. So I really don't have that transition that I have to go through, and that many people do. But the difference between corporate America and coming to a point where you realize, okay, it's time where I have to retire. I never am going to retire. I mean, actually, in the whole sense of retirement, I know that I will never retire. And some people are forced to actually, well, the whole corporate thing, they're either forced to do it because of their age, or maybe because of their health, or other things with their families.
Aging, the whole aging out thing. Yeah.
The whole aging out thing. And there's a lot of that going on because, we're all baby boomers, and, we're just this huge mass of people, and, there's a lot of us. So I think it's so important to kind of work your way into something that you've got to really, I think it's time to just sit down and be honest with yourself and say, okay, what are my interests, other than going to work? Some people are putting in 60 hours a week, and they've been doing that for the last 25 years, and they don't have interests. I've known many people like that in my day, and I still do. And they don't know what they would do or what to do. But I think the thing is to just, take some very important inventory of yourself. Get into like a program, something. Have you ever done the Miracle Morning?
Oh, is that the 5-minute thing?
There's a book out there. It's called The Miracle Morning, and there are several different ways to take account of your life, and they all start with a different letter, like S. It's important to be journaling, but they call it scribing. It's important to be.
What's I think I have it on one of my little reminder things. I'm like, too much work. But yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's just someplace where if somebody doesn't know where or how to start, it's a great place to start. S is, I think, scribing or journaling, writing some things down, like making a list of what you want to accomplish in the morning, and A is affirmations, just,
right.
some positive talk for yourself.
Right. A little meditation. Yeah, to kind of
meditate. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it goes down the list anyway. I don't really remember what each one of them are, but they're all very important to starting the day. If you don't know how to start a day.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting centered, so that you don't get rocked. Like before I open up any emails with everybody and their problems, I need to be centered so that I can deal with you.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just me and this shit show going on forward and sharing it with the world, but if you do that and you're centered, like for me, it's hitting my knees in the morning and all I pray for is keep me focused on you, keep me focused on work, and I'm good for a good 8 hours.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
I hit the post office with my orders and I hit the gym, then it's kind of like, but by the end of the day, if I've had those things, as a priority, everything is okay. Like everything and everybody and their problems are not my problem.
Mhm.
And I don't make it my problem. And I try to put that forth in the group because a lot of folks are, this buyer has an issue. And I'm like, yes, the buyer has an issue. You've done everything that you were supposed to do. You shipped out the item in a timely manner. And now something else happened and it's beyond your control. Not that you want to appear indifferent to a buyer, but there's really nothing that you can do. Just deflect the venom. It's not my problem,
Right. Yeah, you can't take it personally.
No,
You
not at
totally
all.
cannot take it personally. And when you switch from corporate America to being a reseller, you're everything. You're the shipping and receiving. You're
Yep,
you're the
absolutely.
buyer. You're the seller. You're everything. So you cannot take it personally, and you just give the best customer service that you could possibly have without being abused.
Mhm.
And then call it good. I mean, it's and eBay has guidelines too, and that's really helped me. It's like, okay,
Yep.
I can only do so many things. Okay, I can give a free return. Somebody wants to return something, and maybe it's an item not as described, which is like a big no-no in eBay. Well, guess what? If you offer a free return, they can't give you a negative
Just
feedback.
send it back. End of
Send it
story.
back.
Yeah.
I'll happily
I
take
still
it.
haven't. That's one of the things I haven't done yet and I have a pretty low return rate, but because I still do have a mishmash of items, maybe 20 to 25% of what I have listed, I don't want to pay for shipping for that, the hell, it's like a soup terrine kind of thing. Like that's not coming back to me, or it gets, I'm not there yet. I'm
A
not
cement
there yet,
block or
but I'm pretty
something,
good about, I'm pretty good about returns, like for the stupidest reasons. Like, just, honey, send it back, not a problem, but I have and eBay's pretty good. I've gotten some false item not as described, and I fight it, and eBay has pretty much been on my side for all of
I've
them.
been lucky too.
Like as long as all your interactions are traceable back to those messages going back and forth, I point out, like she said initially, X, Y, and Z, go back to the message, and sure enough, they, when they file it that way, you have to pay for the return, but every single one has been reversed.
Yes.
So yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and as long as and as soon as that buyer, which many of them do, as soon as that buyer starts to inject foul language or calls you a liar or
Nope, bye.
does anything unprofessional along that line, I mean, that's game over. Okay,
Mhm.
that's it. Especially when you don't interact with them, when you just say, happy to accept any returns.
That's it.
Please,
Yeah,
please, I'll send you a label. This is all you have to do. And some of them will say, well, I can't find a box, or
not my
I can't find
problem.
a
Yeah,
bag. I
there's
will,
there's a quote I heard a long time ago, and it's, you don't have to take the invitation to step into the ring every time somebody invites you to a fight.
That's right. That's exactly right. I like that. I like the way you worded that. I think that's something.
If someone's
Definitely gonna write
flustered,
that down and pin it up.
they're having a bad day. That's your bad day, not my problem. Again, like, you don't want to seem like you're indifferent. I understand your frustration and all that.
Yeah, you can be as
Whatever.
empathetic as you want. However, at the end of the day, I'm trying to solve your problem here. Send it
Yeah.
back. Period.
I'm on your side. I'm on your side, but I'm not a doormat.
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, there's many ways to approach this whole reseller idea, and it's not as hard as people think it is. Or you can go in so many different areas. I think the first thing is just to find out what your interests are, because you can basically make a business out of anything. And that's why I asked you about the furniture. I mean, what was it, but you liked Victorian furniture. you had an interest in Victorian furniture and you pursued it. So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's a great way to learn about something that you've always been interested in, but were afraid to ask or didn't have the time to do. You know, there's so many, you could sell anything. There's
Yeah.
people that are selling ads out of old newspapers. I mean, I cannot believe. And what do they call the I can never say this word.
What
And
is-
it's what Carl Hellman sells,
Oh, ephemera.
ephemera. That's
Yeah,
it. I don't know
postcards,
what
old,
it
it's
is.
basically old paper, yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
It's
Stamps.
it fascinates me. It just fascinates me what people will buy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just crazy, crazy stuff.
And it's, like memorabilia, all that stuff is just kind of back. Like I have no, and it's funny over the years, like even when I did sell a little bit of everything and I had copper pots and buyers inevitably would ask, well, what do you collect? I'm like, I collect cash. Like I'm not
Yeah,
attaching, like
that's right.
every once in a while I would hold on to and decorate my house with like really cool tea kettles. And I actually did have an interest in like old farm equipment, a double thing, to hold two the oxen hold thing. I forgot what it was called.
Oh
I
yeah.
had a collection of, oh boy, the truth comes out, antique knives, guns, like weaponry. I love
Mhm.
weaponry. So I was in upstate New York and not too far from what's the military academy up there? West Point. They have one of the best museums. Oh my God, the old, turn of the century tanks from, World War I and just amazing, amazing stuff, the old guns and uniforms. And I would run across these things in my auctions. And I'm like, gotta have it. And I hated that I ended up keeping a lot of this stuff. And eventually I did let everything go, but that's the only thing that I had a fascination with, the really old, I bought a cannonball once and sold it. I bought cars, I went to, oh my God, my husband at the time lost his shit. I went to an auction by myself. Usually he came with me, but this one particular auction, I came back, he goes, oh, so what did you get? Like, you don't even want to know. I said, I bought some cars. So it was either 4 or 5 antique cars, like a Ford Model A, Ford Model T, a Hudson, like all these, and he's like, get this shit out. So I had them flatbedded in. Luckily it was like less than a quarter of a mile. Had them flatbedded in. He's like, you've got 1 month to get this shit off the property. Sure enough, I got rid of everything, knew nothing about any of those cars. Before I even listed them on eBay, the entire area knew that those cars were at my house, and it was pretty easy to get rid of them. One I actually ended up selling twice. A gentleman abroad bought one of the cars and said, well, I've got a guy in Miami, he's going to come pick it up, and never happened. I relisted it 6 months later, never heard back. So I sold it twice, got paid twice, and eventually the car got out. So I mean, I've bought all kinds of items, but never really, I mean, to this day, I don't keep anything. I have no emotional attachment to this stuff. It's just inventory. So
That you gave me an idea. That could be a show. That could be a show where you just go out and you just buy all kinds of stuff, had it flatbedded in, and you know nothing about it, and you've got 1 month to get rid of it. I mean, that could, or
you get really ingenious. And this was back in, so I had it advertised, and I'm one of these like guerrilla marketing people. Like, how can I get the word out there for low money, no money? So I would have ads in, like stuff in Craigslist, all the local penny saver pay, like these cars, they went like really quick. But I mean, to me, the cannonball was like the shit. I had somebody from New Hampshire that collected war stuff, and he came down from New Hampshire to New York to pick up a 500-pound cannonball.
He might have been looking for that cannonball for a lot of years.
That's one of those, $50 into 500. I'll do that all day.
That's right. And it's out there.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, that was so interesting. I appreciate that. We're gonna it's my Zoom is blinking here. It's telling me that I only have so much time. They're gonna just cut me right off. But I just want to thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh,
and
thank you for inviting me.
And basically, to sum it up, what we're talking about is, if you're at that retirement stage and you don't know what your next move is in life, but you don't want to be in front of the TV watching TV Land, or,
Checking out.
and in that big comfortable recliner, because there's going to be plenty of time for that. It's important to stay moving, and there is a lot of things that you can do. It doesn't have to be corporate work, but reselling is something that is just, you can be so passionate about it. If you find something, and everybody has something that they like, and it doesn't matter what it is. So, it's important to just keep a positive attitude, positive mental attitude, keep moving, you don't have to do like strenuous workouts, but do some walking, just, getting up and move, read some positive things, not watching the news. I'm not saying never watch the news. I think, putting some positive mental juice into your brain, which is, we're all there. We're all right there. So, I just really think that that's important, in order to have a quality, healthy, happy life.
Absolutely.
That you're going to
me,
love.
it's a matter of, it's just one chapter closing. So if you're like in the corporate life and, make that shift to something else, you have options. You have, as long as you're above ground, you always have options, find something that you love and are passionate about. And if you can make money at it, even better. So yeah, it's a win-win.
And you can.
Yes, absolutely.
Can. But, and if you have any additional questions, just put it in the comments, and smash that like button. I love saying that. And I feel so cool. And thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next episode of Reselling into Retirement.
Thank you, Nancy. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.